Hi there, and thank you for tuning in to Ducascopy TV. Today I have in the studio Cosimo Beverlli from the University of Geneva and the World Trade Organization to have a look at the relationship between migration and trade. So, welcome. Now, first of all, can you tell me about the recent rise in migration and, of course, how it has an effect on the global economy?
There has been a recent rise in migration. Between 1990 and 2000, the global stock of migrants increased by 38%, and most of these increases accounted for increases in the stock of migrants coming from the south and residing in the north, which has increased by 85%. High-income OECD countries impose restrictions on migration, which are in most cases binding. However, these restrictions make little sense from the global perspective, from the perspective of global welfare. For instance, the World Bank has estimated that if rich countries were to lift these migration restrictions enough to allow a 3% increase in their labor force, this would amount to $300 billion welfare gain for poor country residents and $51 billion welfare gains for rich country residents. And the $300 billion gains for poor country residents represent more than 4 times the amount of global foreign aid. So to answer your question, it can be said that immigration has a positive impact on the global economy. However, there are also downward pressures exerted by immigration on the wage of unskilled workers in receiving countries. However, the economists do not have a consensus on the amount of this effect. And there exist studies by respectable economists who have shown that the immigration in the US is actually associated with an increase in total factor productivity with positive wage effects.
Now, the idea immigration increases bilateral trade flows between the immigrants' host and home countries is actually receiving growing support. Now, what do you think about this?
It is true that migrant networks can positively affect trade, bilateral trade between the origin and the destination country. And there are in particular 2 theoretical channels behind these network effects of immigration on trade. The first one is the preference channel, whereby migrants have a disproportionate preference for goods produced in their home country. And the second one is the information channel, whereby migrants can convey important and useful information for the establishment of trade and business networks. And the literature has found that migrant networks have a positive effect on trade, more on imports than on exports, and more on differentiated goods than homogeneous goods. And it is very interesting to mention the literature on the information channel, which is relatively new. Some of this literature has shown that migrant networks have the possibility to increase ethnic diversity of goods and services, in particular food. There is one paper that has shown that migrant networks increase the ethnic diversity of restaurants in California, both because the migrants have a comparative advantage in the production of ethnic food and because they have preference for their own food. And the same can be observed in cities with large immigrant shares like New York, London, or the same Geneva.
And finally, high-skilled migration can actually have a positive effect on technological progress. Now, can you tell me some examples of this?
Yes, first of all, it has to be noticed that high-skilled migration, which constitutes a brain gain from the perspective of receiving countries, has increased over time. For instance, between 1990 and 2000, the share of high-skilled migrants in the total number of migrants increased 64% in OECD countries, compared to only 14% increase in the share of unskilled migrants. And there are a bunch of OECD countries that have skill-biased migration policies, like Canada, Australia, the US. Also, the EU is trying to implement such skill-biased migration policy with the Blue Card Directory. In the US, 47% of PhDs in science and technology are foreign-born. There are actually various ways in which this skill migration can affect technological progress in the receiving countries. First, they contribute to the population growth of cities. And cities is the place where innovation clusters. They are also a highly selected sample of the population in terms of skills, but also in terms of entrepreneurship. They're younger, and so these are all characteristics that lead to more innovation. And recent empirical studies suggest that actually there is a positive effect of high-skilled migration on technological advance. These studies use patenting as a proxy for technological progress. For instance, in the US, it has been estimated that a 1% increase in the share of immigrant college graduates in the total population is associated with a 9 to 18% increase in patents per capita. And similar effects, at least from a qualitative perspective, have also been found in EU countries, where in addition, it has been shown that innovation levels are positively correlated with the ethnic diversity of immigrants. So overall, the innovation effect of immigration, of skilled migration, is yet another positive channel through which immigration can affect destination countries.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And as always, thank you for watching Dukascopy TV. Now viewers, do stay tuned, as later I will have the president of ISAC in the studio, so see you then.